What's going on, everybody? C4 here. Welcome back to the channel. And yeah, we are here for post-game grades after the Philadelphia Eagles knocked off the New York Giants 22-21. Is late. I'll see about just going to bed and recording this in the morning, but there's still a little bit of energy in the air. You know that 2-4-1 first place in the NFC East energy that just has, you're not going to capture that in the morning once I'm sobered up and I'm thinking very, very clearly. I want to overreact. I want to enjoy this fact that Philadelphia plays down to their competition. We know this. We know this because of the Philadelphia that showed up against Pittsburgh, the Philadelphia that showed up against Baltimore showed up tonight. This game would have been over probably before halftime. But we continually played down to our competition. But I still feel confident that Philly's the best team in the NFC East, and I will always go down with the statement that I would rather make the playoffs and get a higher draft pick because we trust Howie Roseman to make the most of a pick between 10 and 15 versus making a pick at 18 to 22, 23, somewhere in that range. That margin of error for some teams, if you're a great drafting team, that's a big deal. But when you're the Philadelphia Eagles, I'd rather a chance of another Nick Foles miracle run in the playoffs than just relying on Howie Roseman's drafting ability. But that's neither here nor there. Let's do some grades, and then I'll give you my thoughts about this game. As Philadelphia wins 22-21, Carson Wentz threw the ball 43 times, almost 400. Jesus Christ, that's like the most passing yards I've ever seen Carson Wentz throw. 359 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Also had a rushing touchdown, so 3 total touchdowns on the game. Really, the interception was easily the worst play of the game for Carson Wentz. And it's going to be, it was a really bad interception. 100% that ball had to be thrown away. But if you eliminate that one bad play, which is, that's always kind of been Carson Wentz, this is a strong game from Carson Wentz. This is exactly the kind of game that we needed to have from him that, at the end of the day, you got to outduel Daniel Jones. You be able to go in and look at a team like the Giants. They're not going to run the ball, so, they're going to be throwing it. And if they're throwing it, we best believe that we can believe that Philadelphia could throw the ball and keep in a game with a team that has a passing attack like the Giants. And we were able to do that today. So that is, I think generally I'll give that, B+ from Carson Wentz, maybe even trending towards an A-. For running the ball, Boston Scott had 46 yards running the ball, but everyone's just going to talk about that catch, which was insane. I got a lot of vibes similar to a couple years ago when Carson Wentz hit Corey Clement on a wheel route. But that, I think this catch might have been more impressive. The importance of this catch, because I'm pretty sure that Redskin one, I don't think the game was as close. I don't think it was like the go-ahead touchdown that eventually ended up being the game-winning touchdown. So Boston Scott, what did he have then? 46 yards, and so he had almost 90 yards. He played him in fantasy, 90 yards and a touchdown for Boston Scott. Exceptional. We know Boston Scott is a giant killer. We know Boston Scott has the capabilities of being a feature back in the NFL every now and then. A feature back is part of a committee. If there's someone banged up, we know that if Boston Scott is RB1, he's good, man. He's talented. We know what he can bring to the table. So overall, the running backs didn't really do much. I felt Jason Huntley, who we're a big fan of here on the channel, I thought he showed a little bit of juice. Had I don't know if it was a little bit of a bad pass, bad catch from Huntley, but you're just seeing the explosiveness there. So we have depth, but Boston Scott steals the show. I'm going to give him personally an A+ in a game ball. Look at the receivers. Old Dick Rod. Richard Rodgers led the team, 6 catches, 85 yards, 73 yards for Fulham. 59-yard bomb caught by Hightower. Didn't drop it this week, so that's pretty good. Progress, baby steps. And obviously the touchdown to Boston Scott. Greg Ward had, I think, 40 yards and a touchdown as well. So, it is what it is. Takeaways, outside of just the fact that Boston Scott touchdown was, that's like all-time highlight reel worthy for Boston Scott in his career, for Carson Wentz in his career. Like, that's making some sort of highlight reel. But I definitely feel like, it's still... I don't want to look for negatives, but it's like, what is J.J. Arcega-Whiteside doing, man? Like, he had 1 catch for 8 yards. And it's just every time I see someone like Greg Gordon, we know solid, and Giant Hightower, the rookie, has some speed to him, but it's just like every time we see all these other guys making plays, it's just like, well, what happened to that little guy there? What happened to, what's this little guy offering to the team? And it's, I don't know, man. I would honestly not be surprised if we just like cut him one day. Just cut ties. You don't want to have all those roster transactions throughout the year. I know he's Howie Roseman's guy. I know Howie Roseman would rather just keep wasting a roster spot on JJ and versus admitting he was wrong and admitting he was a bad pick and kind of cutting off ties. But personally, if I was a coach, you might see JJ's name popping up on these guys was released and bouncing around on practice squads and stuff like that. 'Cause I don't think there's anyone in the right mind that's going to poach him from the Eagles. So, I'm a Quez Watkins fan. I'm a Quez Watkins believer. And every time you see JJ out there, I'm just like, what does Quez Watkins got to do to get on the field? At least he has 4.3 speed, right? So But overall, I was impressed with Richard Rodgers. I think I saw somewhere on Twitter, Richard Rodgers and his 85 receiving yards tonight was more than Zach Ertz had in any game. So obviously different situations, but still, it's a fact. You know, if you look back at this Eagles season, Richard Rodgers would be number one for most receiving yards in the game for a tight end, and not Zach Ertz. So I'll give the receivers, B, low B minus. Special teams, I don't know what's going on with Jake Elliott. I know Philly has a kind of ugly contract on him. It's not just like you can threaten by bringing in other kickers in the week to cut him because the dead cap is really, really bad. But I think you almost have to bring in other kickers at this point. Jake Elliott has been shaky at best, and even just to bring in a kicker to kind of get his mind right and get him refocused again, I think that's what I would do personally if I was Doug Peterson. Because special teams, the kicking game was pretty bad. I think Johnson continues to be one of the most consistent players. No one really wants to talk about punters, but I don't think Cam Johnson's had shank a punt, and he's constantly giving Philly some pretty good field position. So he did well. But you can't talk about special teams this game and not about the Deshaun Jackson injury. 45, Madre Harper from Southern Illinois. I remember he had a crazy pro day. Absolute piece of shit. That was piece of shit move. Absolute piece of shit. You're on the same list now as DeShazer Everett. What is it with NFC East games and then just blowing up with dirty hits on Eagles return men? Chris Baker, DeShazer Everett, and now you put in Madre Harper into the list, okay? So congrats, you made a list. I think Monte Nicholson might have been on. No, it wasn't. My apologies to Monte Nicholson. I know he's seen this. Didn't mean you. But, that's bullshit, man. And just as soon as we got Deshaun Jackson back, now he's out here. I mean, no one knows what's going to go on, but I don't know, man. This might be the end of we might see Alshon back out there before we see Deshaun Jackson. So we're going to finish up with the defense. Alex Singleton led the team with 5 tackles. Had the probably most highlight-worthy, I would say he had the most highlight-worthy play on the defensive side of the ball when he absolutely blew up a running back. I think it was Gallman, and then just almost pretty much tore both of Danny Dimes' ACLs. It was an impressive play. Literally was utterly dominant. I think Singleton has earned more reps than Nate Gary. I don't know if he's technically getting them. Be interested to see the snap counts, but Singleton, he's not athletic. You're not going to be getting a guy that's like, holy shit, look at him. He's making plays over the field, drop back into coverage. But in terms of a run defender and a blitzer, you're seeing a lot more juice, a lot more sizzle out of Alex Singleton consistently than Nate Gary, who actually, full his credit, Nate Gary actually blitzed okay, had a sack. But I definitely think overall, if I'm looking at the linebacking core, I would have Singleton ahead of Nate Gary, ahead of the other dude that we got from Atlanta last year. No. Give it to the CFL MVP. Come on. He's almost pretty much as close as a Canadian that could exist on the NFL. There wasn't a firefighter or anything like that. But either way, Singleton was solid. I thought Rodney McLeod is kind of looking washed. If we have to look at that defense, the aging defense, absolutely can't be said about Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham might be the best player right now. I think Darius Slay, if you could somehow kind of throw away the penalties, he's getting a lot of flags on Darius Slay. Not all of them are his fault. Sometimes you're hearing the announcer saying that was a terrible PI call, but I think the penalties will give me the edge to saying Brandon Graham's been the best player on the Philadelphia Eagles. And I've been kind of critical about his expensive contract and his lack of end production. And I mean, BG's on one. He might be I think definitely statistically he's on track to have a career year. And that is awesome. That is exactly what we want to see. So BG played good. I think Alex Singleton played well. Darius Slay, outside of penalties, played fairly well. Nickel Roby-Coleman, 0 effort on the Danny Dimes turf monster tackle play. I honestly haven't seen anything. I've absolutely not seen anything from Nickel Roby-Coleman. I know we're playing him outside more than we are playing inside. He's a slot guy, but effort's not there. He's not fitting in on, not meshing well. He's a liability. He's kind of getting picked on in the secondary. I mean, honestly, I'd be one of those things. I would just maybe switch him, put Strap inside, and then put Roby-Coleman in the slot. So at least you kind of have a guy at his strength, because Crayvon LeBlanc, Strap LeBlanc, I mean, he hasn't played well enough to get that nickname right now this season. But, Jalen Mills got a pretty decent pick. Fletcher Cox had a strong game. I felt, really, if I had to just continue to kind of nitpick, maybe, Javon Hargrave for the hype that he had, for how much he's getting paid. He's been able to build a couple games together, staying healthy, getting back healthy, and I'm still not necessarily seeing it. I'm not seeing this guy that came over pretty hyped from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers fans were hitting me up saying oh my God, you guys got a really, really nice player. And then, I don't know, man, he's kind of been the shits this year. Every time he's been out there, I haven't really overly been impressed. I remember maybe one TFL. That's about it. But defensively, they did a solid job. It was hot and cold, a little bipolar. But, on the day, probably, I don't know if I could say. Maybe the Eagles play complimentary football. I've been begging for them to play complimentary football where, if you know what that means, basically your offense, your defense actually play well at the same time. I think literally this game here, at least we didn't have that. Both the offense and defense kind of were like up and down and kind of shit overall. So at least they all kind of played like shit. And luckily that shit did not stink as bad as the New York Giants shit. And Philadelphia is first place in the NFC East, baby. So defensive grades, I'll give the defense, I'll give them B-. You know, I was still more so believe Brandon Graham sealed the deal with the sack fumble there on Daniel Jones. There's just something about Daniel, you know. You can't see the picture back there because I terrible camera and shit, but I got the old Brandon Graham sack fumble on Tom Brady. So obviously not the magnitude of that, but maybe the magnitude of that right now for the Philadelphia Eagles season. And hopefully that's enough juice for them to go on a little bit of winning streak. Just don't, all you have to be is just the least shitty team in the division. And I think Philadelphia can find a way to fall ass backwards into that. So let me know how you guys felt about this game in the comment section below. But overall, first place. First place is first place, and we are first place until the Cowboys play on the weekend. And that's pretty cool. I don't know, this is usually the only time of the week I talk Eagles football on the channel. So I guess we could say trade deadline is coming up. If I was Philadelphia, you know, I would be, say, Zach Ertz, trading block. Yeah, wait there. And I'd be considering, I actually don't really know. Maybe Derek Barnett, trade block. What do you want? I'd probably, after tonight's game, Nickel Roby-Coleman would get slided up there. But you know, there's a lot of rumors. Are Philly going to be buyers or going to be sellers? And I think personally, if I was the Eagles, I would see what's going on with Zach Ertz. That'd be the guy. That would be, I think, the only guy right now, because there's people and blogs and beat writers. Fletcher Cox, absolutely not. Do not get rid of Fletcher Cox. We've put it this way. It's one of those things where, like, obviously Lane Johnson, anytime Lane Johnson's not out there on offense, you feel it, probably more so than any other player, excluding Carson Wentz. I think the same can be said for Fletcher Cox. Anytime they do that whole, we D-line rotate all the friggin' time, you definitely know when Fletcher Cox is not on that field. I think, you know, at least if we get rid of Zach Ertz, we have Dallas Goedert that can step in and a guy that has very much a ceiling of being a very good tight end one in the NFL versus that drop-off. If you got rid of Fletcher Cox, you know, Malik Jackson can't stay healthy. You know, our D-tackle depth is not that. Javon Hargrave's been unimpressive. So, I mean, yeah, I would say Zach Ertz, if I had to trade one, that'd be the guy. And if I had to bring in someone, I'd be looking for Avery Williamson, the linebacker there from the Jets. Jets are clearly sellers. Williamson's in the last year of his contract. He's only 28. He's actually fairly solid, being able to drop back off into coverage. So immediately an upgrade over Nate Gary, which is exactly what we want. Plus the connection there with Joe Douglas as the GM in New York. So if I had to buy a player, it's not the flashy name. People are like, oh, get Deion Jones and Miles Jack and stuff like that. But under the radar, but would be a huge upgrade for the Philadelphia Eagles. Avery Williamson of the Jets would be my target. That's going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with some form of Madden video. See you then.